who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling, and you take him for a friend.
It wasn't all that long ago that the Democratic Party in the United States fashioned themselves as some kind of beacon for hope and change in America. But nowadays, hope and change are more so just slogans peddled out by politicians. And honestly, with how bad all of our attention spans are, it feels like the fighting in politics is all anyone wants to watch anyway. But during this last election cycle, I realized something. I think I can explain everything about the Democratic Party from the last couple of decades through characters in One Piece. The 2024 Democratic Party, like the Marines, are stuck between saying that they want the institutions that exist to be the best they can be, all the while having a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. So I want to break it down, character by character, on how One Piece helped me understand the state of the Democrats. In One Piece, the Marines are sworn to protect peace and justice in their world. But anyone who's read the manga or watched the anime knows that this justice is really just a facade, one that ignores the world's government's deep-seated corruption. And many Marines see the flaws, but rather risk their position in the order. They accept incremental reforms at best. Does that sound familiar to you? Because I think the Democrats have a similar issue. They want reform, they want change, or at least that's what they say, but they refuse to ever really shake things up. In One Piece, we see a clear divide between those who prioritize freedom and justice and those who cling to power through the rigid existing systems. When we look at the Democrats, it's almost eerie how perfectly they mirror certain characters in the Marines. And each of these figures, both fictional and real, symbolize the tension between doing what's right and staying loyal to a system that protects the powerful, a system that you're familiar and comfortable with. So to start these comparisons, I want to start with Garp, the hero of the Marines. Garp is powerful, respected the world over, and deeply moral, at least in his own mind. But of course, Garp's biggest flaw doesn't have anything to do with his fighting ability. It's his loyalty to the Marines and the world government, no matter how corrupt they become. He complains about the system's flaws, but when times arise to actually take a stand, he stays put. Garp has seen countless injustices firsthand, yet he can't imagine abandoning or fighting against the institutions that uphold them. For him, justice exists within the system, never outside of it. He is a perfect institutionalist. And while Obama may not wield Garp's fists, he sure does wield the same contradictions. He came into office with a historical election, espousing all these concepts of hope and change and that the future could be brighter. But what did he actually change? His actions showed us that when push came to shove, he protected the system that he campaigned against. After riding the Occupy Wall Street wave on the left, he bailed out so many Wall Street companies while average Americans lost their homes. And after campaigning on the atrocities committed in Bush's war in Iraq, Obama continued and actually escalated drone strikes, all while international law took a back seat. And he did deliver on some things. Like the Affordable Care Act was genuinely a step forward on a promise that he had made about pushing this country for a better healthcare system. And I don't want to say Garp's done nothing. He's not only raised some of the most important figures of the revolution in his world, but we don't know what his involvement with and what the future arc of Sword is. So I will admit that he could end up being a secret revolutionary. And I guess so could Obama. I don't see how that works. Because for both of these two, when it's come to real structural change, they opt for incrementalism over bold action. Obama and Garp both struggle to break free from the idea that real change has to happen from within the establishment. But here's the problem. As a viewer of One Piece, Garp's loyalty to a corrupt world government isn't seen as heroic. It's seen as tragic. His inaction in the face of oppression allows the world government to thrive completely unchecked. Like he even gets himself into a situation where he has to watch as his grandson gets killed by the organization he's dedicated his life to. And he says himself that he won't continue to advance his career because he doesn't want to take orders from the Gorosei. He knows that the system he's a part of is wrong. And honestly, I don't even want to talk about how bad the God Valley incident made Garp look. But Garp wouldn't rebel. And in the real world, Obama's reluctance to challenge Wall Street big tech and corporate monopoly left the United States even more entrenched in these power structures. And it left the people who supported him more disenfranchised than ever. Garp and Obama may be seen as heroes by some in their respective worlds, but they both show us the dangers of working within a system that prioritizes control. One thing that One Piece consistently tells us is that real heroes are willing to stand up and risk it all for justice. And we've seen that Garp, and by extension of this analogy, Obama, chose safety over the fight. Now let's turn to my least favorite world government lapdog, Akainu. To me, this man is the ultimate institutionalist. He really believes in enforcing the world government's justice at any cost, even if it means ignoring or destroying innocent lives. His loyalty to the Marines is unwavering, and his absolute dedication to order justifies any actions in his mind, no matter how brutal they are. In One Piece, Akainu is the face of the system that values obedience over morality. And this, of course, brings me to Hillary Clinton, a person I hope to never talk about again in my life, but I knew you'd want me to talk about Hillary Clinton. Clinton's career is defined by loyalty to the democratic institution. And I don't mean like the democratic process, I mean loyalty to the Democrats, loyalty at all costs. In 2016, the DNC decided to put their foot on the scale and sideline Bernie Sanders, a candidate who, for all his potential flaws, represented a populist wave of change on the left, all in favor of Clinton, the ultimate establishment figure. The message was clear. Loyalty to the machine meant more than the population's choice. And that's similar to Akainu's mindset, because he'll go to any length to preserve the Marines' authority. Like Clinton's loyalty to institutional power came at the expense of the people's voice. Think about it. Even though Akainu is shown to have like a little bit of disdain for the Gorosei, he would definitely prefer to have innocent lives lost than to challenge the world government's authority. And like Hillary Clinton, she, by way of the DNC, chose to lose to a populist wave of Donald Trump on the right than to allow a true progressive to lead the charge on the left. Both of them are institutionalists through and through. And they both represent systems that would happily sacrifice real moral change for a continued sense of stability. But here's what One Piece has shown us. Systems like these don't serve the people. They serve themselves. Akainu's marine justice isn't real justice. It's about maintaining power and control. And the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, by sidelining progressives to maintain their institutional grip, showed that they cared way more about power and control than any type of positive change. Then there's Fujitora, and I do love Fujitora. I mean, he's an admiral with a conscience. He openly acknowledges the flaws of the world government and pushes for change. In fact, he's instrumental in abolishing the warlord system, which ended an entire era of unchecked power. But here's the thing. Fujitora's reforms, as bold as they are, never truly challenge the institution of the Marines and the world government. He joins the Marines and stays within their power system, ultimately hoping that he can make a difference without uprooting the system itself. Now, I don't think it's a perfect comparison, but this made me think about Joe Biden. Biden won handedly and came into office promising to build back better and bring progressive change along with it. And yeah, he did push forward some progressive orders on climate, healthcare, and international affairs. But like Fujitora, Biden's changes always felt symbolic, never really targeting any core issues. We still see him and the Democratic Party kowtowing to corporate interests, lobbying power, and incrementalism. Because Democrats during the Trump era, especially under Biden, showed sympathy for progressive causes, but continued to attempt to reform from within, rather than breaking the system entirely. Like, look at Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan. While regardless of how it was handled, it was in line with progressive policy, it stands juxtaposed to his outright refusal to do anything about the ethnic cleansing happening in Palestine. And similarly, Fujitora was instrumental in abolishing the warlord system, but he was never able to take a step back and challenge the system which instilled the warlords in the first place. Fujitora's approach in One Piece has been to address the symptoms without ever confronting the cause. And to me, it's felt like we saw the same thing with Biden. Put a band-aid or a salve over things instead of getting to the heart of the issue. One Piece consistently shows us that real heroes, true revolutionaries, don't just go around tweaking the system, they challenge it at its core. Fujitora's reforms with the Marines make him admirable, but ultimately ineffective against the world government's corruption. And generally, Biden's time in office follows the same path. Maybe, perhaps it's a step in the right direction or it's well-intentioned, but it's never truly confronting the powers that be that keep progress from becoming permanent. So here we have it. Garp, Akainu, Fujitora, all Marines who want justice, but only if they can get it without challenging the system that upholds injustice. It's a paradox. But if they're like Obama, Clinton, and Biden, who's Bernie Sanders? Bernie is probably the closest mainstream figure the Democrats have to like a revolutionary. You know, a radical person who actually wants to shake things up. But I wouldn't call him Luffy because there's a catch. Sanders himself operates within the framework of the Democratic Party, and that limits him. Case in point is the primary of the 2016 election and the subsequent 8 years that followed. Like Luffy, who wants freedom for everyone, Bernie's heart might be in the right place. But ultimately for Bernie, his hands are tied by the very party that he works within. Luffy's approach can't really be equated to that, because Bernie and his wing of the Democrats are constantly pressured to compromise. And in the end, any revolution they may pose remains safely within the Democrats' walls. And after all those comparisons, I know I've got to address the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. I gotta talk about it. Do I have to talk about it? Yeah, I do. I do have to talk about him, don't I? Well, this might actually be my next entire video, so I'm not gonna detail it too much, but ultimately I really struggled to see him falling in line with One Piece's revolutionary message as well. Sure, Trump is a revolutionary, but his revolution is about self-enrichment. He's an outsider who didn't exist within the world's current power structure, and while he claims to be dismantling the establishment, and maybe is doing so, what he's actually building is a personal power machine. He's not a Luffy who's fighting for justice and freedom. He's fighting for himself. But he's a populist, and his rhetoric is radical, but ultimately it's hollow. And when you see that, especially through the One Piece lens, you see that it's a tool for manipulation, not liberation. So I've talked a lot about these politics and I keep bringing up revolutionary change. So what does real revolutionary change look like? Well, it's not about small incremental reforms or manipulative rhetoric. It's about having the courage to dismantle the parts of the power systems that uphold corruption and having the vision to build something new. And I'm genuinely not sure that we have a politician in the United States who has the balls to do that. Because Luffy, who we all love so much, doesn't fight for a few tweaks to the system or 4 years of incremental tiny little progress. We all know he wouldn't be happy with that. He fights directly to dismantle oppressive power structures entirely. But Democrats like Obama, Clinton, Biden, and even Sanders have chosen the safer route, keeping one foot firmly within the system's walls. And to me, that's where the problem lies with the Democrats. But honestly, at the end of the day, revolution like this, change, it's uncomfortable. So you have to ask yourself, do we really want change? Or are we okay just trying to make the status quo a little more comfortable? Because if we are after real freedom, it's time to look past reform and start imagining what tearing down the corrupt foundation actually looks like. Because raging against corrupt institutions and tearing them down because they deserve to be teared down is what One Piece teaches us, right? Because you know, for Luffy, anything less, it's not enough. It's just the same old, same old. Stay safe out there, Nooners. We love you.